So if you're a woman and you're in your early 50s or you're in your late 40s even, and you're starting to experience some of these symptoms that you described before, typically we see women will go to their gynecologist or they'll go to their primary care physician, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of options.
So we're going to go through kind of more information and some free tips and things like that, just to get women started and start kind of thinking about changing the conversation and feeling more empowered around that time.
We are back again with another video in our collaboration series with healthcare professionals. And today I'm excited to have my local colleague and friend, Dr. Ashley Russel, here with us. She is a doctor of naturopathic medicine and has a specialty in perimenopause and women's health. So it is a really important topic. I can't wait to talk to her about it. And hang on until the end of the video to hear more about Dr. Russel's upcoming program. You won't want to miss that. So we're going to just get right into it. And Dr. Russel, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I mean, we can talk for days about women's health, so we'll try to keep it short.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there'll be plenty more information that we can point people to if you want more. But let's just get into it right away and just tell us a little bit about perimenopause. What is it? How does a woman know if she's in perimenopause? Let's just start there and just define what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's great because there is so much misinformation around perimenopause, and even women that are in it and know they're in it, they still refer to it wrongly. But perimenopause is just the time around menopause. So kind of when a woman starts transitioning. And menopause, I think the biggest confusion is literally a moment in time when your period has stopped for a year. So you're either perimenopause before or postmenopause after. You're not really necessarily menopausal, even though we use those terms. But a lot of symptoms, what I've seen most often can be kind of changes around the cycle first. That's usually a woman's first clue. So maybe their periods get heavier, which we usually wouldn't think that would happen, or their PMS symptoms tend to worsen or just lengthen. Maybe they go from having a couple days to like a week or 2 weeks of PMS, and that kind of build up. So those are the kind of biggest changes, but other things like night sweats and getting overheated and mood changes, brain fog, weight gain. It's a really long list, unfortunately. So it can be kind of confusing because you're like, am I just stressed or is this something else? Or yeah, am I going through a natural change? But one thing women can do is get testing and just ask their doctors for some basic hormone tests to kind of see if they are curious of where they're at in that transition.
Tell us about that. What are the specific tests? Because one of the things that we run into a lot in our office as well is women that come in and they do question this: Am I menopausal? Am I perimenopausal? And we have the same, relationship to the terms of, okay, this is what menopausal means, and everything else is like this big gray area. So how do you know where you are in the perimenopausal scope? Because you could be, just beginning, or you could be midway through, and you could have the same symptoms as someone else. And so tell us a little bit about what testing, a woman should ask for.
Yeah, so some basic testing that you can ask are, the main ones are FSH and LH, and that's follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And basically, I say these are hormones from the brain telling the ovaries what time of the month it is. But as we go through that transition, those ovaries kind of start going into retirement. So your levels start rising on those because it's kind of like the ovaries they think aren't listening. So your brain starts yelling at the ovaries like, hey, what's going on? So that is the most kind of definitive clue we see from labs. But you're right, sometimes, it can be too early that we don't really see those changes. But definitely FSH and LH rising are the most definitive tests. You can look at other things like estrogen and progesterone, but those are the other two. And unfortunately, a lot of times it is a clinical diagnosis. So, we kind of rule out everything else, and you're at that age and it's probably likely what's going on. But testing is always great when you can get it, just to see where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those kind of things that's tricky because in our office as well, you can get testing, but really what it comes down to is what are the symptoms that you're having? And if you're having symptoms of perimenopause, we want to be able to help. And so
Right.
let's go into that next, because one of the things that we see is like, okay, so now we know what it's about, and we know kind of
Mhm.
like how to find out from a testing standpoint if we have it. But then what do you do about it? So if you're a woman
Mhm.
and you're in your early 50s or you're in your late 40s even, and you're starting to experience some of these symptoms that you described before, typically we see women will go to their gynecologist or they'll go to their primary care physician, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of options. And so then occasionally we will get them if they're open-minded enough, and we'll start working with them. And so let's talk a little bit about the differences between what are the allopathic solutions to perimenopause, and then what do we do from a holistic standpoint? How do we work together? It's in certain situations, and let's just spend some time on the solution side of this.
Yeah, oh, I love solutions. It's the most empowering part of talking with people. So yeah, so allopathically, unfortunately, which we see with lots of things, there's not a ton of options. The main option is HRT or hormone replacement therapy. And there's different forms of that, but the downside is, contrary to what we've been led to believe, a lot of the research actually doesn't support HRT actually helping in that perimenopause menopause transition. And it actually can increase risk for things like heart disease and stroke and some other issues. So it's, unfortunately, they don't really give what we call informed consent, where they're telling you all the benefits, but also the cons to doing that. Or sometimes, it's symptom wise. So they'll give you an antidepressant or Ambien for sleep or something, very symptom band-aid based.
Yeah.
So, not great options. The other thing I will just say clinically that I haven't seen in the research is, you're not meant to be on HRT forever. So another common issue I've seen is women come off of it and then their symptoms just dramatically shift overnight to being horrible, because they're not going through that natural transition. So that's another conversation to have of what's the long-term plan? Because I'm not going to stay on this forever.
Yeah.
Um, but fortunately, as we both know, we have so many tools in our, natural toolbox. So obviously acupuncture and herbs is one of those. um, Nutrition is definitely a huge component. Women don't realize how much inflammation can play a role in affecting those hormone changes. And even things simple like dehydration. I mean, hormones by their nature travel through the blood. So being properly hydrated is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Just simple things to overlook. And then obviously some of the big stuff we know affects a lot of health conditions like stress. So stress management, which we can do through all kinds of lifestyle changes, but herbs as well are so fun to work with and support.
Yeah.
Um, and then, other things that I think get overlooked, like just detoxification, and making sure that your body is able to remove the hormones that you're producing in a proper, balanced way. So that's kind of, I mean, the tip of the iceberg. I could spend, like I said, days kind of going into every little thing. But as you kind of just, we talked about, there's so many more options than just HRT or an antidepressant
Yeah, I
that
think
are
that's so important.
safer, that are safer.
That are safer. Yeah, I think all that is important. It's like we want something to be safe and not have the potential for creating the heart disease, the cancer, so,
Mhm.
some of these things that have been linked to those, endocrine, changing medications, and we want something that still works. You
Mhm.
still,
Right.
if you're going through and you're having hot flashes every day all day, you still need
Mhm.
something that works. And so that's one of the things that I think you're pointing to, is that there are many options, and what we need to do is actually determine what is going to give you the most bang for your buck, and then also looking at it through multiple tools, right? So like you said,
Mhm.
it's like if you just say there's only one thing that's going to fix this, it's just if I eat more greens, then that's going to help.
Mhm.
That's unlikely to really be your solution. Really, at this
Right.
point, we want to find what are your supplements that can really be supportive and natural. What are your nutrition improvements that can really be targeted specifically at the your experiences around perimenopause, right? And then what are the things that you can do to calm your nervous system down that aren't going to affect brain chemistry? You know, like you said, acupuncture, vitamins, you know, so many options around these things. So, you know, I think that that's really important. Now, if you have a woman who's already on hormone replacement therapy, how do you work with them? Tell us a little bit about that process, because we see that quite a bit in our office as well.
Yeah. So I always, whenever someone's on something, and usually they come to me because they want to get off of something because it's either just not effective or they're sick of the side effects. I'm sure you have similar people that you deal with. So I usually like to, what I say, build people up and get them where they feel better before we start kind of just, you know, having them discuss coming off of anything. So, you know, and the one thing that, when it comes to naturopathic medicine, is we're looking for that root cause. And we know for women, I mean, it's inherent. I think we've just been kind of brainwashed to forget this, that menopause is a natural process. I mean, it's not it's become so medicalized as though it's this unnatural thing, and getting older is horrible. And, you know, it's just, you got to deal with it. Whereas, you know, we look at, okay, what's the underlying issue causing this dysfunction? Because we know in other cultures, women don't have issues that we have in America when it comes to perimenopause symptoms. I mean, some cultures have no hot flashes reported. It's just not a thing. So what is it? Yeah, is it nutrition? Is it all that? But yeah, when it comes to HRT, we really want to support kind of those natural pathways, and individualize it much as possible, but it really feels like someone's stabilized before they even consider coming off. Because like I said, I've had people cold turkey stuff, and that just never seems to end well.
Yeah, no, like you hit on a bunch of really important points there. I think, you know, the value of the process is really important, you know, then, and knowing that, you know, we're working with you through a process, and, you know, there's no problem, and we aren't going to be able to get a quick fix. And that ties right into the cultural conversation that you were having before,
Yes.
which I think we could have a whole nother conversation just on that.
Very true.
Because as a Chinese medicine practitioner, there's so much emphasis on Eastern culture, and looking at how do you take the benefits of Eastern culture and the benefits of Western culture and really bring them together. As somebody that was born and raised in the West but has studied Eastern medicine, it's like you do see this very different perspective on aging, and the elderly being revered in many of the Eastern cultures and being kind of like pushed aside, unfortunately, in our culture. And I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, because I'm sure we could we
We
could have a
definitely
whole
could. My
discussion on
brain's
that.
already like, oh, yes.
Yeah. But it's an important piece, because what we want to do is kind of encourage, you know, perimenopausal women to find the things that are going to help them transition through this time in a way that really honors what's naturally happening. And so, you know, and to make it a positive thing, and to make it really a valuable thing for
Yeah.
them and their family. And so I love that point that you made there.
Yeah, and to that, I mean, again, I won't try to go down to the rabbit hole too much, but you know, from a feminist standpoint, we're kind of defined by our youth and our childbearing years. And I find for women that go through the transition, it's a very empowering, or it can be a very empowering time of, you're not held back by your period and this, you know, this stage of your life. You can now kind of step into your own more in your own power and just really, you know, become more of your true self. It's definitely like that spiritual, emotional, mental, it's a whole transition, which I think, you know, I love the idea of just changing the conversation around that, instead of it being so, oh, you're getting older, sorry.
Right.
You know, it's not how it's meant to be.
Exactly. And you know, I think this is kind of really what you're speaking to is really the holistic point of view, which is that you're bringing in the emotional components, the physical components, in addition to just the straight symptoms that somebody is experiencing. You want to really kind of pay attention to the whole picture, and in many cases even a spiritual perspective around, you know, what does this mean for me, and what, you know, what does the future mean, and what, you know, so I think it's an amazing and interesting time of life, I mean, for men too, but women just have a more there's just more to it for women. There really is, and
Yes.
it really needs more attention. It really, and it's important, and and so that leads us to really your specialty. So tell us a little bit about this program that you have, because I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to send some people your way for this. And this has really been, something that you've been working on and kind of birthing in a certain way. So tell us a little bit about the program that you have coming up and what that entails.
Yeah, so it's two parts. So I have a free webinar coming up on March 17th, and it's called Calming Hormone Chaos in Your 40s and 50s. So we're going to go through kind of more information and some free tips and things like that, just to get women started and start kind of thinking about changing the conversation and feeling more empowered around that time. And then I have, yeah, as you were saying, so excited, more in-depth 8-week course called Reclaim Your Hormones, where we go through step by step, kind of every issue that women deal with at this time, but look at it from more that holistic lens. So you feel, again, more empowered to have those conversations with your doctor if you need to, but also have all the tools that, yeah, I've been honing over the years that we know work, to help you really feel like this transition is, I say, to survive it with grace. So it doesn't destroy your relationships and your life just because your hormones are going crazy, but also gives you actionable steps and things you can do to really feel like you're not just at the mercy of your hormones. So yeah, it's going to be great. It's online, so you can do it from anywhere virtually, but we'll do live Q&A calls, and there's lots of handouts and great support. Yeah, as you said, I've been birthing this for a while, which, it's definitely exciting to share all this great knowledge with women. And the one thing I will just say is, we joke, or I joke, that, we get taught what it's like for puberty. We understand what it's like to start your period, but we don't understand what it's like when your period ends. It's not something we learn about. So I kind of think of this course as taking that place in that education, because it just, next thing you know, you're in perimenopause and you don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's so great. That's such a great way to think about it and to kind of fill in a gap that's missing in our just general health education and kind of, cultural education. So that's awesome. I love it. We're going to put the information, we'll put the information in the comments section, and make sure that people know how to find you. And yeah, this has been fantastic. I can't wait for you to start this program. And I think perimenopause is just such an important area for us to continue to talk about. We could go on for hours, but
Yes.
we're gonna I
That's what the
appreciate.
course is for, hours and hours of
Yes,
content.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what the course is for. This has been great though, and I appreciate your time and expertise, and look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Ryan. It was great talking to you today too.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We will catch up with you soon.